What's up, YouTube? Here are 5 squat variations I use to get a 50-inch vertical.
This is one of the first variations that we teach any of our athletes, and that is just a fundamental, basic deep squat. So a deep squat is where you're sitting as deep as you possibly can, letting the knees come forward and the butt come back so that the bar is balanced between the knee and the hip. Ideally, you have very good ankle mobility and you can actually allow your heels to stay on the ground. A lot of people don't have quite the mobility and sometimes the heels will come up. You can come back up, Isaiah. And yeah, that's basically what we're looking for fundamentally. From the front, you just want to see the knee track over the foot. Keep a neutral spine. You don't want to see the back rounding in any of these reps here. And this is something fundamentally that we do with our athletes, every single one, year round, probably once a week. Now, if there are constraints like they have back pain or something, we might not do this. And the reason why is because this will strengthen your quads and it'll strengthen your hips, which are 2 of the main prime movers in a 2-foot jump or a 1-foot jump. The reason we like deep squatting is because when you're down, i.e. we know if the rep counts and we know when the rep doesn't count. Another big reason why is because you're able to get massive loading at the quad and the hip because of the leverage in the bottom of the squat being so poor. So that's fundamentally why we like to use it. And like I said, this is one of the movements we keep in there year round for all of our athletes.
Oh, I could have TT help me with the weights. Hey, babe.
All right, guys, so the second variation of squats that we like to do, probably one of my favorite exercises, also one of the most intense exercises that I put in my programming, is something called the true squat. Now, this is something that I took from my mentor, Mike, and kind of adapted it to our training and our style of training so that it's super effective for my super elite athletes. So Isaiah here obviously is one of those super elite athletes. He's gonna step underneath the bar with the pin set up so that he's about 90 degrees at the hip and the knee. So you can see at the knee is a little bit deeper, at the hip also a little bit deeper. This is totally fine as well. So what he's gonna do is stand up from this position. He's gonna re-rack the weight. And what we're actually gonna do is add weight on top of it. So we'll put these 35-pound plates on. He's gonna step underneath the bar again, take a step back, and then lower the weight down with an additional load. So control it, usually on a 3 to 5 count all the way down, and then TT and I will take the weight off again. And then from this bottoms up position, he can push all the way up and then re-rack it, and that's how we do the reps. The reason why I love this exercise is multifactorial, but the biggest one is that I'm able to load all 3 of the muscle contraction types maximally, meaning I'm able to load the eccentric or down phase at his peak capabilities, which is far higher than he can lift upwards, but I'm also able to take some weight off and max out his concentric force, which is on the up phase when he has less weight on the bar. Thirdly, I'm able to max out isometric because he's starting from a still position with the bar actually on the pins. So he has to generate a lot of force to overcome the inertia of that bar, generate a momentum upwards on it, and obviously rack it again so we can do the eccentric reps. This is massively intense. And like I said, we only do this a few times a year. You definitely want to set up the safeties if you do this and have a very high lifting experience and probably someone supervising. So for weight on this exercise, I will typically put about 500 pounds on the down phase. So the bar will start like this actually. I'll load it up with 5 blues on each side, step back, lower the weight on a 5 count. Once it's resting on the pins, I'll take off about 245s on each side and then do a pin squat or a bottoms up squat, again, training the concentric and isometric muscle contraction types maximally with as much force as possible from that bottoms up position at 315. Stand it up and repeat that. I'll typically do 3 reps of working weight, and then I'll take a big rest and do it again. All right, guys, so those are the first 2 variations. The third variation that we like to do most of the year for a lot of different athletes is actually for rehab and the purpose of getting an athlete who's injured healthy, and that is the slow squat.
Before we get into these slow squats, you might already be thinking about incorporating these squats in your training, and that's a great thing. But for those who don't know how, don't worry, we got you covered. You can sign up for online training at THPstrength.com. You'll be coached by Isaiah Rivera and John Evans themselves. You'll be given sets, reps, exercises, how-to videos, all specific to get you to jump higher. Go ahead, check it out. Link is in the description below.
So in our training, we call this a phase 2 exercise. If you don't know what that is, then go back and watch the How to Fix Your Knee Pain video. We talk about phase 2 exercises, and this is one of the specific exercises that we do for our athletes with tendon pain and honestly even cartilage pain too. So Isaiah, go ahead, step out here, and you're basically doing the deep squat or a half squat and going very slow, usually on a 4 to 5 count, sometimes even 6. So he's 3, 4, 5, 6, pause for a second, and come back up. Oftentimes, what athletes screw up on this is on the turnaround, so either at the top, as Isaiah's changing direction, or right here. If you watch very closely, athletes will pop out of this position very quickly and actually increase the load on the tendon and oftentimes cause pain or issue. So this is how to do it wrong, is they'll typically squat and then bounce out of the bottom. And what that does is it loads the tendon really quickly and can cause more pain or make your tendon worse. This is also good for increasing hypertrophy of the muscle and making it bigger and stronger. And what we do is we typically progress up the weight over time. So we'll tell the athlete to pick a weight where they feel a 3 to a 4 out of 10 in their knee pain, and then basically increase that weight session to session to allow them to adapt optimally and allow their tendon to increase its capacity over time. Ready?
Yeah.
So the fourth squat variation that I love to use for Isaiah and a ton of my athletes for performance, very different than the last variation we showed, is a velocity-based training squat or a VBT squat. You can also call this a high-intent squat or push hard as hell squat. So Isaiah's not really fully warm, and so I don't want him to kill himself demonstrating this for you guys. It's basically a constraint that you're putting on the actual back squat. So while Isaiah is doing this, what we're gonna look at is how far in the tempo he's going down and then how hard he's pushing up out of the bottom of the squat. The goal is, with a VBT squat, is to have a very high velocity or a high speed standing up from that squat. And you can do this on the down phase or you can do it on the up phase. Oftentimes, coaches and athletes will focus on just the up phase, and that honestly is a big mistake. I think if you focus on the down phase, you can also increase performance. We typically do this 2 to 3 months of the year, I would say, for most of our athletes. And you have to be really careful with how much you do because it can cause a massive amount of fatigue or basically kill your legs and make them dead, give you dead legs. And so it takes a while to freshen up or get fresh legs after doing this, which you can go to THPstrength.com and sign up for coaching.
You want me to do a couple?
Yeah, so go ahead, Zay. Go squat down slowly. And then with the same intent as jumping, he's gonna stand up and explode out of the squat, right? So coming down slow, you can go down a little bit further. Push. So he's probably going about 60, 50% effort right now because he's not fully warm. I actually like the plates to jump off the bar with athletes when they do this exercise. And again, you can use a device that actually measures the velocity that you're standing up on these with typically like a push band is a good one, something called GymAware, and it basically just measures how hard and how fast you're moving that weight on the up phase. Anything else? Oop. So for the last variation for performance, I love doing something called a pin squat. The reason why I like this so much is because it trains the concentric force capacity of the athlete, which, again, if you've watched our previous content, is super important when it comes to optimally using the stretch shortening cycle, which is your ability to utilize elastic energy in a sprint or a jump. So Isaiah has pin squats set up here. You want to set the pins up. You could do it at any range of motion. You could do it at a quarter squat, you could do it at a half squat, you could do it at a deep squat. Depending on the time of year, we'll kind of adjust those variables. But for this one, we're going to do it at about, was this about a half squat for you?
Yeah.
So at about a half squat, he'll step underneath. Typically, we have a pretty high load, but slightly less than what he could do in just a regular back squat or regular deep back squat. And I would just tell him to push up as aggressively as possible from this position. So what this trains is your ability to lift concentrically because you're taking out the stretch at the bottom of the rep. Now, you don't always have to just use safeties. You could actually use a box or something else to allow yourself to emulate this. So if you don't have safeties, that's a good alternative. But I like the safeties because you can dump the weight easily if you can't stand it up. Or if you miss a back squat, you're gonna be just sitting on the box and you're gonna need a partner to help you lift it up. Another benefit, you could actually do velocity-based training with this, and you could actually maximize your intent and your velocity with the movement in a very controlled way by taking that bounce out of the bottom of the rep. So if you were to do, for example, the first variation that we showed, what you'll notice is when he's going down in this squat, so in a regular deep squat, you're able to get that stretch out of the bottom, right? He's able to use the energy in his tendons to allow him to generate a little bit more energy or a little bit more force and accelerate that bar upwards, making the rep easier. So what's your pin squat max actually? So 315, his back squat PR is 405.
Yeah.
So you're seeing 100-pound difference. And this is similar to a deadlift, right? Like when you do a deadlift, you're just moving it from a standstill position with the bar is not moving already. You don't have any energy, you don't have any elastic energy, and you just stand it up, you just pick the weight up. Essentially the same thing, but you're doing it with a back squat variation.
All right, guys, those are 5 highly effective squat variations that I use to jump higher. This is only a piece of the puzzle though. It is very important to use these in a periodized plan. If you need help doing that, go to THPstrength.com or the link in the description to check that out. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more jump training content. Like the video, it helps the channel tremendously. Leave a comment if you have any thoughts or questions about the video and topic, and we will get back to you. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.